Alright, hey boys, let's alright, get ready for a long ranty video, alright? So and fuck, I hope my audio works not atrociously this time. Um right, so we are playing a Soulrend Curse Occultist in Delirium League. Alright, 10 out of 10. So what's the game plan? We are using uh we are using Soulrend with no Bane. We're using curses on Blasphemy as opposed to on Bane because I wanted a one-click build and I wanted my curses to affect things without me having to hit them first. So that's basically the gist of why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. I wouldn't say that it's optimal to not use Bane at all in your build. Getting extra DPS from it is probably a good idea. Just like cutting out like an aura and like moving your links around to have like a whole other skill, or even just like playing Essence Drain Contagion is probably going to yield you some more damage. But this is what I wanted to do, so I did what I could to make it work. Alright, so we're going to go through all this stuff here. So first thing we're going to look at is our beautiful spell bow. It's not perfect. This is basically what you're looking for. It's you want a reflex bow that is of a low item level. Generally, you would want to do one with one that's item level 1. Mine's item level 50 is what I had at the time when I was trying to make it. If you have enough dex that for some reason you can use a Mariketh bow, you can get 4% more movement speed, but it probably isn't worth investing in all that dex just to get the 4% movement speed for just how much that dex is actually worth when you don't need it on almost anything else on your build. So 124 dex for the bow is a reasonable cost, and you're probably going to be able to get that much fairly easily. I don't want to say really easily. Anyways, the ideal bow here would be to have strength gems and intelligence gems as opposed to the dex and intelligence gems that I have here. And then obviously if you want to go further, you can annul the multi-mod and then slam something on it, like, fuck it, I don't know, dex. But yeah, I tried making bows for a very long time this league, and I've been hindering myself in the crafting this league a lot with trying to make all my gear have the same double influences. And we'll kind of go through some of that piece by piece, but that obviously was really hard for the bow, and I did end up hitting a couple that could have worked, but obviously once I missed the annul, I kind of felt really shitty about it, so I gave up. And when I say I gave up, I mean I had to spend my currency elsewhere, and couldn't really afford to just keep inting on making a new bow. So you know that's what we're using for a bow here, and then the links themselves, we have a 21 soul rend and a level 4 empower. The levels of these get scaled by the levels on the spell bow, which means that you have like a level 30 plus soul rend, which is going to help you deal a lot of damage. Then we have greater multiple projectiles. Greater multiple projectiles is the best way to scale it because you don't lose dot from less projectile damage. So it's almost no cost to just say, hey, 4 more projectiles. Even though if you swap the helm enchant for the +1 proj helm enchant and you're using 2 projectiles, you could slam some other more multiplier support gem in here, and it'd probably do better than damage-wise than otherwise, but I wanted more spread with the 5 projectiles. This is the way to do that. The cast speed doesn't really help your DPS, so 10% more cast speed for the Woke GMP doesn't really help you, but you do get an extra projectile, so probably could have been using that. Then we have an Efficacy, Awaken Control Destruction, and Avoid Manipulation. Fantastic. Alright, so moving on, we have our first double influence unique, which is Soul Strike. The influence doesn't matter, you don't go through this hassle, but if you want to look pretty and you want to do the things that I do, it took me 4 tries. Okay, I had to make 4 of these bases with a Woke or Beach, and then the 3 of them became the other base that sucks. Yeah, I don't want to corrupt this. There's almost no quiver implicits that you could corrupt that would actually make this a better item, so don't bother, generally speaking. In fact, the crit chance is kind of good because it scales with the power charges and actually does something for your damage. Not much else is really going to help there. So then we have a baited breath. Now the baited breath is basically best in slot next to like a really fucking good crystal belt. But I mean, it's just got so much going for it, and the big thing here, the ES recharge rate, is going to help kind of counteract the downsides of using Soul Strike for the 80% faster start of recharge. And that's huge, right? Because we're playing a Wicked Ward build on this Occultist. I sure hope by this point in the video I had already mentioned that I was playing an Occultist. Then we have a Skyfords. Now, the no life regeneration doesn't matter because we're not using Zealot's Oath, so we can still use Energy Shield regen. That's fine. It's not really the issue. It's only converted life regen that you don't get. But it doesn't matter because we're not regenning much anyways because, again, we're using Wicked Ward because we're playing an Occultist Wicked Ward faster start build. The reduced mana reserved obviously is really good here, and then the mana actually will come into play a lot later. The power charges don't matter too much, and the big thing here is the stun threshold based on 500% of mana instead of life. This basically makes you stun immune because it's based on your total mana, not your unreserved mana, and what this means is that you don't have to use a Presence of Kaula, so you can use an actual good amulet. So yeah, let's talk about the amulet. So I have been crafting amulets for the entire league, and this is the best one that I've gotten so far. It has the +1 Chaos skill gems, the Chaos damage over time multiplier, crafted % energy shield, some resistance or something, in this case the T1 Chaos. The other prefix doesn't particularly matter, but we got one that has 30 flat with the catalyst quality. Great, fantastic. And then we slap Spider on there. Spider you want to be on an accessory and not on a non-accessory, because if it's on a gear piece that has support gems, they'll fuck with the mana reservation cost of the aspect, and you don't want that. And then we've allocated Soul of Steel for basically the best damage reduction we can. The goal here was to make an amulet that was +1 level of Chaos Gems, +1 level of Intelligence Gems, with an open prefix or a good prefix, and then multi-mod for the Chaos damage over time multiplier. I did hit one, but it had T1 Fizz on it, and it did not survive the multiple annul attempts. What I did is... basically, I've just been spamming Aberrants to get these, but it's just ridiculously rare. It's like 1 in 8k, and using double influence obviously makes it harder to hit, but it gives you kind of the upside that you can hit like some other good suffixes when you're crafting it later, but they don't really matter because you're probably not going to hit them with the chaos.multi, which is what really matters. Anyhow, so the way I did it was because it didn't already have chaos.multi on it, and I happened to annul the other two suffixes before I had hit any of the prefixes on the double +1 base. It was slightly better than a 1 in 3 chance of success because I was using attribute quality to reduce the chances of annulling the int gems by like 20%. And then what I did was I multi-modded so that if I annulled the multi-mod, it would also be a good outcome. I would just slap aspect on it, I would use it, whatever, forget the %yes. So this basically turned the odds of making it a good amulet from like slightly better than 1 in 3 to slightly better than 50-50. Wouldn't have been what I wanted on the other half of that, but I would have taken it, right? So it would have worked, and yeah, no, we still bricked it. So this is the best amulet I was able to craft this league. I would highly recommend just buying a +2 amulet base. It's God knows how much easier to just buy it than to try and craft it, but I wanted it on this base, and nobody sells items with this base. Obviously, because they shouldn't, because it's not profitable. But yeah, that's the amulet. Moving on, we have our gloves here. Now I did a couple gloves. Basically, the idea with the gloves is you want to do 2 socket resonators with dense and aberrant. Um, Obviously on a 30 quality base as well, because you want as much ES as possible on it. So I made some really nice gloves, some really nice gloves. Until I realized that abyssal sockets are like having energy shield on your suffixes. So then I started using 4 socket resonators with aberrant, dense, hollow, and sanctified. And this is the best one we hit up on, and obviously I slammed T9 mana because I slammed T9 mana on literally every gloves I ever have that get an open prefix. Um, But these are pretty good. These are about as good as you're going to get for gloves. They're only 176 ES, but if you think about the Abyssal socket as an extra 40 ES, they're basically 215 ES gloves, which aren't 245 ES gloves that I had before, but you get all the extra mods of the Abyssal socket, and obviously if I had hit better prefixes after my many attempts, maybe it could have been more. But it's because the mana is like actually still kind of useful to me. This is what I'm using. You can see my nice previous bricked Skyforth and Bated Breath here. Perfect rolls. Where is? Oh, right. So this is the jewel that I basically bought and then slammed the fizz onto, which isn't super great. But this is what I was gonna use in it, but instead ended up using some shitty res jewel because I'm an idiot and I can't figure out how to cap my resistances in actuality because crafting is hard and I hate my life. We'll get into the resists and everything later. You'll notice that both the gloves and the helmet have 20 fire cold, or should have 20 fire cold, and then the Shavs gives you, with a perfect roll, 40 lightning, which means you can have 40, 40, 40, which means if you really wanted to and you got all res on everything, you could in fact use a wise oak because you would be perfect capped on your resists because you don't get extra from anything else. Or at least if you built it that way, you wouldn't. And you know what? That's probably useful, but I don't know if I'd actually use it over a different flask. I haven't gotten there yet, so I haven't bothered trying to see if it was worth it. So then we have, so our helmet. Now for the helmet, you could probably get an abyssal socket here too, but then you're starting to kind of really get skimped on like actual jewel sockets. So I said no. So basically, what did I do to craft the helmet? Because this is not anything like what I was trying to make. I was woke orbing helmets with the fizz taken as with minus enemy chaos resistance, and I must have made a bajillion helmets, like 100x worth of these shitty ass helmets on woke orbs because they bricked the annul every fucking time. So the intent here, obviously, Soulrend damage for the not really obviously. All the Soulrend enchants are pretty good, but the damage, if you want damage, I guess. The hinder on hit or whatever it is pretty decent. An extra proj can be used if you want to not use GMP and you want to put another damage gem in that way, which would be more damage, but less projectiles. Sorry, off topic. What was I? Right, I was woke orbing the 2 Awakener mods to try and get ES. And I didn't hit it until I finally hit it with T1 ES on this base, at which point I did prefixes cannot be changed, suffixes cannot be changed with the can have 3 crafted modifiers to chaos spam the item to reroll the item for a name that I would like to keep because I spent so much currency on this helmet. I wanted it to be something to remember the league by when it goes to standard. And probably never gets looked at again for a while. I do like going and playing standard, but I'd never give myself time to do so, so it never actually happens. So what happened here? Because obviously the mods we're staring at are not the mods that I was going for, right? So what happened was I realized that if you want to divine an item that is multi-modded, it's a huge pain in the ass. So I started annulling, knowing that if it bricked, I could make myself an abyssal socket one if I really wanted to do so, and if it didn't brick and it hit the craft mods, I could recraft them, which would essentially be the better way of divining the rolls, which actually ended up working out pretty well to give me these decent rolls. Still not perfect, so you know, if I really wanted to, I could divine it further, yada yada, whatever. But what happened was I annulled the minus chaos res, and I was pretty happy about it because I was like, okay, I'll just make another base, whatever, and it meant that I didn't have to look at the stupid yellow floaty rocks around my character that you can't see right now because they're not in my build anymore, but they're kind of fucking up my MTX vibes, and I didn't like that. So then I hard slammed Shocking Conflux. And it was at this point that I looked at it and I was just like, what is this mod? Like, who, like, what is Shocking Conflux, right? So basically, Shocking Conflux is actually a really good mod because the way Shock works now is that it's easier to hit that minimum shock threshold of like 15% damage. So it's actually just like really good damage mod on my item while it's active. So that's really cool. I made it better and got rid of the stupid ugly R that I didn't like at the same time. And then after that, decided, well, I'm going to null it again. And then I did hit the multi-mod, so I slammed it and I hit int, which is acceptable. So here we are, the weirdest helmet you've probably looked at in a while. And now we get to the real spice. So we're going to take a look at the ring here. So this ring is a triple T1 ring after, again, many, many Awakener Orb attempts. And yeah, I don't know, the meta crafting hasn't been going so great. So it'll be up for mirror service on my thread once I get good suffixes, but I don't have good suffixes yet, so this is what I have. Crafted resistances. And my other ring is just a placeholder res dogshit ring because, again, I was kind of like running out of funds at the end of the league and didn't really want to spend the time farming up a shitload of currency. Like, I had so many opportunities to make boatloads of currency this league that just didn't pan out. I hit like 8 voices farming them, like hard farming them, and I didn't get a single 3. 1 3 would have gone a long way to like really min-maxing the shit out of this build. But yeah, realistically, what I'd like to do is finish this ring with like all res, like actual all res, or like reduced effective curses would be really big, like curses on your character. That's a huge defensive node because random curse on hit and simulacrum and stuff, that can be pretty rough. And then it means you don't have to get as many resistances to deal with things like elemental weakness, which obviously, because I'm using so many uniques, resistances have been a bit of a struggle. Yeah, and then if you got despair on hit on your ring, you could actually save a lot of hassle from having it on your actual gem links, and you'd need a lot less reservation. So I'd actually recommend that. I think if you wanted to do that, despair on your ring is level 8 or level 5, and the level really doesn't make a huge difference versus like the 21 or whatever. Like, you're still going to get a huge damage boost from it, and that's really what you're going for. In fact, it may actually just be better to be on hit, because if it's for nearby enemies and you're not near the enemy, you're not going to actually deal more damage, but if they're far away and you hit them, you will still deal more damage if it's on the ring. Alright, so flasks. We're using a Enduring Divine Mana Flask of Heat. This basically solves our mana problems because they would be a bitch otherwise. It's possible that once we actually get enough mana, we don't need a mana flask. But because it's an enduring flask, it will stay up regardless of the timer, and that will mean that we can have the heat up all the time. I was using Dream Fragments for a while. You can do that if you want. Dream Fragments is a good option instead of having the flask. What else did I have? I had a pair of Cannot Be Poisoned, Cannot Be Frozen boots. And the problem with these boots, they're really fucking nice boots, but they didn't have Cannot Be Chilled, so I would get chilled by everything. And so I realized that I'd rather just have a flask or the ring, and I wanted a lot of ES, so I figured I would get the flask instead. Then we have a grounding flask that is a sulfur flask. This should probably just be a bottled faith. I don't see any reason why this can't just be a bottled faith. I had a bottled faith early in the league. It took me 30 Cortexes to get. That's how bad my luck's been this league. Now, obviously, I didn't buy 30 Cortexes at 6x each. That was when they were like 2x, but not the point. The point is that I sold it to fund other shit in my gear and then never got the currency back or was able to get more Cortexes to reobtain it. Then we have an Alchemist Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline with a 30% movement speed roll with 26 quality for as much movement speed as possible so that we can zoom, zoom, zoom. We have an Experimenter's Quartz Flask of Dousing. Dousing is really, really, really important because you don't really have a proper way to deal with Ignite in this build. And if you get ignited and you can't remove the Ignite, you're fucked. Realistically, you want Dousing on the Mana Flask, and then if you're using like a Dream Fragments or you have some other way to prevent like Cannot Be Chill, Cannot Be Frozen, whatever, Alpha's Howl, like fuck, whatever, it's like this is the most important flask mod. I have it on a Quartz Flask, again for Zoom Zoom, and then the 10% spell and attack dodge, just to have it. And then we have a Roomies, because I learned this league that you can block even on builds that don't use a shield. It's just block as a stat, and you can get it, and it doesn't matter if you're using a bow, you can block. I found that mind-boggling. That blew my mind. Like, I had no idea that you could do that. So yeah, Roomies. Alright, so moving on. Let's talk about... Oh, okay, no. Not skill tree time yet. We gotta go over the other gem links. Right. Okay. So 3-link here. We have Cast When Damage Taken level 1, Immortal Call level 3, and then Phase Run level 3. Yeah, 38, 30. So you can see here that the required level on these level 3 jewels gems is 38, which means that the level 1 Cast When Damage Taken, which requires level 38, can cast anything under it in level, and then they're basically as high as they can be while still being under that. So if you were to use a gem that had a different type of level arrangement, you might not want to use a level 3 one, but for these specific gems, you use level 3 with the level of Cast When Damage Taken. And basically, the phase run will basically mean when I get hit, I zoom, and then when I get hit, I also Immortal Call to help protect me from incoming damage for the split second that it procs. Moving on, we have an Enlighten 4, Vol Discipline, Malevolence, and Blood Magic 21 in my boots. It doesn't have to be in the boots, but it's in the boots because you want this to be a 4-link, and if you have Abyssal Sockets on the other gear, that's where they're going to be. The life you can see that I have here is I have a bunch of life still, like over 10%. So, you know, the level 21 and level 4, you probably get by with something a little less maybe. But if you want to do Hall of Grandmasters, if you have under 10% life, you will get cold. And I didn't want to get cold, so this is what I did. Now, the build can do Hall of Grandmasters, but you have to have a way to deal with CI thing, so you basically have to have a swap of a Scorching Ray gem to help deal with the other stuff, and then you can basically just heal, or you can basically just do Hall of Grandmasters. You'll die a bunch, but you can do it. And then the Scorching Ray is also good because it doesn't hit, and not hitting means you can deal with the block guys. So you don't need like anti-block or any of that stupid shit. Alright, next we have Temp Chains, Enfeebled, Despair, Enlighten, Woke Blasphemy for the Mana Reservation Override. Not much to say here. That's the big important setup, and then we have a Zealotry for that 15% more spell damage, and I guess the Consecrated Ground chance, but like not really. Like if you have to cut this, you know, like that's where you're gonna save your mana. If you don't have enough mana reservation, you want to get some skill points elsewhere. That's how you're gonna do it. The helmet, we have Flame Dash, Culling Strike, Second Wind, and Arcane Surge level 7. Having a decently lower level Arcane Surge is a good idea so that it will proc every time you use the Flame Dash. So you want to make sure you understand what your cost is on the Flame Dash. I tried to avoid taking reduced mana cost of things that I cast on nodes on my tree and whatnot, because I wanted to avoid hindering this or fucking with this as much as possible once I kind of figured it out. I don't actually know if 7's the sweet spot where I am right now. That's where it was like a while ago, and this just gives you more spell damage while it's up. If you were to get an Abyssal Socket here, you would cut the Culling Strike probably. You can actually get Culling Strike in other ways. There's some really nice Curse Jewels you can get. Let me just pull one up. I have an example here. This one. This is a really good curse jewel. Forbidden Words reduces the reservation of your curse auras, gives you AoE effective curses, and then you can get Intimidate and Unnerve on it. And then there's another one you can get like Culling Strike on cursed enemies, stuff like that. Cursed enemies are hindered. There's some nice curse ones you can get. The big thing here, though, you can get like a lot of this stuff elsewhere, right? So you can get Cull on your thing. You can get Unnerve. You can actually get on gloves. I had a really nice pair of Unnerve gloves that bricked, and I was so sad. It is a prefix, so it kind of eats into your ES, but I mean, fuck, it's just it's a huge damage boost if you can get something like that if you're lucky enough. I think that's all the gem links. Yes, that's all the gem links. Cool, fantastic. Yeah, okay, onto the skill tree. So basically, I've fucked with this tree to the point where there's almost nothing else I can do. But I'm just gonna. So you want to go and you want to skip these ES nodes here because they're not good. Get these like just travel int nodes, save as many points here as you can. You want to go up here, grab each of these. They're good. Going here, you want to make sure you grab Pain Attunement for the extra damage, obviously, and then you're going to want to loop around here and grab Wicked Ward. You can take the small cluster for the faster start and some ES, and then this Prodigal Perfection node is really worth taking. Even though it's like fucking 4 travel points, like this node is really good. The 2% increased spell damage per 100 mana up to 40% it's huge. It's huge. It's really easy to get 2k mana, and so this is basically just 50% spell damage on a node. And then this node is actually also worth taking once you have more investment, which I do not currently have, but I should be taking this node soon. Anyways, this is the most efficient if you need to get rid of reservation nodes because you don't need them. This is where you would cut them. I have 2 cluster setups we'll go over in a moment. Going down here, we have an Energy from Within with Corrupted Blood cannot be inflicted on you. Again, you're going to see a theme of dot immunities on this build. Then we're going to go down, more reservation. The R effect is not worth it right now, but if you wanted to go kind of heavier on the R's, you could. I don't know if this is better than just swapping out for like an Aura cluster jewel, like maybe. They didn't seem worth it, so I didn't take them. Going down here, we have move speed, cast speed, and then we grab the intuitive leap here with silence prevention. So again, we can still cast under silence. Then we grab this one node here for the dot multi chaos damage and chaos res, and then the really good reservation nodes down here. If you wanted another anoint, you could actually anoint not Soul. This is what Soul of Steel does. It's 1% all max res, phys damage reduction, some armor. But you could anoint Champion of the Cause. It's a cheaper anoint, gives you 4% reduced mana reservation and increased effective stuff. So that's a really good node as well if you wanted to go for that one. We loop down the bottom here instead of going through the top. And then our Watcher's Eye, there's a lot of things you can do for the Watcher's Eye. Faster Start is the most important mod. Unaffected by Bleeding is really important, and Unaffected by Bleeding does affect the corrupted blood. It doesn't mean you won't get the status, it just means the status won't hurt you, and that's fine because the status doesn't really do anything else. So you actually don't even need this implicit on the energy from within. You just don't. So the other good mods you'd be looking for here are the Clarity as extra mana, because your mana will be higher than this and it's a big ES boost. Recharge rate, I guess ES on hit, but like not really. Dot multi malevolence is huge. Yeah, so Clarity and Dot multi malevolence I think are the two biggest ones, and then recharge rate, and then the other discipline ones, whatever. You can get like Arcane Surge Zealotry would be really good. The problem is that getting one of those in addition to these is really hard, and these are the most important nodes, I would say. So yeah, it's kind of hard to get a jewel like that, but that's what I would do if I did that. Just a quick note, we are grabbing the int nodes here, which are helping us scale our int. These are worth it after a certain point of investment. Going down here, we grab the good ES nodes. These 3 nodes, do not take these nodes. I'm taking them for the res. Just don't do it. Just don't take those nodes. It's not worth it. Get your res on other shit. We'll get over how to do that in a second, because there is a way. I didn't do it, but there is a way that you can do it. And then you grab all these res nodes. Now what you can do with these 3 points that you don't take, and a couple points you're going to save later, is you're going to take these 4 nodes up here because they're huge damage. That's your next best DPS increase. And then you're going to take this 1 node right here, the mana. If this tree could look very different if you're using Voices ones. I don't like the concept of Voices ones in terms of like the way that Voices 1 works is that you don't have to craft a large jewel, and you don't necessarily have to craft a second large jewel either, because you'll just invest all your points into them, and then you scale the things that you want really hard, but it's just like it's so much investment to like not make an item that would be an item on your build. I know I'm explaining this terribly. I like the crafting of items. I don't like an item that says you don't have to craft this item. It has the like kind of thing that you can you're gonna have to make more like smaller jewels as well, and fuck, god damn, if I have to make any more small and medium jewels. But yeah, I don't know. Like it's probably more efficient to be using Voices ones if you really want to invest in it. But like, fuck, I don't think I'll ever use a Voices one. It's so much money to like to have something that's just instantly better than like anything you could craft, and I don't like that. I don't like that it even exists. So yeah, if I had actually hit one while I was farming simulacrums, I would have sold it and then used it to fund other gear. I wouldn't have used it. Anyways, that doesn't really matter. So what I'm actually using here is I'm using 2 large setups. I have 2 identical large jewels. These are the only jewels I've basically perfectly crafted on my build. They're 8 passive skills, chaos damage with Dark Ideation, Unholy Grace, Wicked Pall, 2 sockets. They absolutely, under no circumstances, can have any other mods. It doesn't work. The orientation of the nodes on the large cluster jewel, it's not random, but like if you have 2 identical jewels, they work the same way. But it's random in the sense that you can't really predict where they're going to go. So through trial and error, I had to figure out where they went, that they did what I want. So this is the only combination that has Dark Ideation and Wicked Pall not on the top. Okay? And these are the 2 nodes that you want on your large. You want Dark Ideation, you want Wicked Pall. Unholy Grace is actually not worth taking. If you took these 4 points and somehow had 4 more points, you would take them because they're better than other things on your tree to take for those 2 points, but they're not better than the efficiency of the nodes I'm currently taking, therefore you don't take them. Yeah, so, and it has to be 8 nodes as well, obviously. So basically what this accomplishes is you have a 5 node cluster jewel, and comparably a Voices, right, it's a 4 node cluster jewel, but you have 3 sockets. So it's like a 5 node, so it's almost as good as a Voices one in that sense in terms of the number of nodes that you're spending. But then you don't have the third socket, obviously. Now with the mediums, what we want here is something like this. We want 5 passive skills because if you have 6, it's too many. There was a point where having 6 was good because you would take all the subnodes because they're better than the other nodes. But that point got adjusted, and now it's just you don't want to take the small nodes on them because they're not as valuable as taking the other big nodes that you're trying to maximize in this setup. And then taking 5 is the same as taking 4 because you just go around this side, but you don't want to leave yourself out the option of just like taking an extra point if you end up getting extra points, I guess, right? Like, why would you use a 4 when you could use a 5 is basically the logic here. So a 4 would work, but there's no reason not to craft on a 5. Because if you, for some reason, wanted to take this node for 4% more fire resistance that you needed for whatever reason while you're fixing other gear or something, I don't know, you just could do it, right? Anyways, not really the point. The point is you want Dark Ideation, Eldritch Inspiration, and then you want like all res or all attributes, ideally. I just have a shitty tier of fire res and it's not good. But yeah, so basically what you're doing here is you're stacking Dark Ideation, which is very similar to Prodigal Perfection, but it scales a little higher. And then Eldritch Inspiration gives you Chaos Dot Multi mana regen, so that eventually you can maybe dip the Mana Flask. And also, with the Clarity ES Watcher's Eye would give you more ES, and then a Chaos Dot Multi is like good, right? So then you're going to go here to your small cluster jewels, and I don't have any perfect ones. The easiest ones to make are Energy from Naught 35% double prefix, with like decent suffixes if you really like make a bunch of them like I have. I've spent so many Chaos Orbs rolling these things. Imprint Beasting is like a way to make a really good one, but it's also like any way to make one that's actually like insane is consistently costs a fuck ton of currency. And people just aren't buying good cluster jewels. I think people don't understand what a good cluster jewel is the problem. Like, it's that and, like, everyone's playing Herald, right? So, like, nobody needs ES jewels like this per se, but, like, realistically, on an actual ES build where you're min-maxing, you want 3 passives, and you want the passives to be as swole as possible. So I did the comparisons between all the jewels, and it's a pretty tight race between flat ES, Energy from Naught, percent. The best jewel you could possibly get, and I don't have a single one from all the jewels I've crafted, is 35%, 20 flat. It's far and away the best possible that you could get. Energy from Naught is a trap in that sense because it's really good and it's better than everything else. Having Energy from Naught is better than not having Energy from Naught until you realize that this jewel is not, if you don't have Energy from Naught, it's not that you're losing 100 ES. You're not losing 100 ES because there's a node underneath here that you still get. So having a really good node underneath actually becomes better because these nodes will give 8% ES and then they'll also give flat. So if you have 20 flat instead of an Energy from Naught, you're getting 60 plus 35% plus 8%, which is just better than 100 flat, right? Anyways, so we can take a look at the ones that I have crafted here. So we have this one's good. We have this one has cold res instead of fire resistance. It has Wicked Pall. Wicked Pall is the second best thing you can get to Eldritch because crafting Eldritch Dark Ideation is hard. I've got another extra couple bases here I've been working on to that I'm going to slam later to try and get a better suffix. all of these were basically crafted by chaos spamming. It's hard to really do them any other way. This is the best one I made, but this was when I was using 6 passives, and so right now I actually have extra points tied up in here. I have an additional 2 points that I don't need to be taking in here right now, but I'm taking them for the all-res because I don't have it on other things right now. If this was a 5-node jewel, I would be lit. Like, you could... that would be a really good jewel. It is Wicked Paul, though. But I mean, that you would take something like that. Like, I've made 8 to 10 of each Wicked Paul and Eldritch ones. And it's really hard to hit something that's actually good. Not to mention how rare it is to craft them in the beginning. Then we have this one. This is probably the best one I have. This is Dark Ideation Eldritch, 7% fire resistance on a 5-node. And the 7% is the T1 with the proper roll. It's not all res, and I don't like that, but I mean, it's T1 res. Like, you're gonna use that, right? Now, the interesting thing here about my small jewels is I showed this one. This one's nice, 35% with the LE res and the int, and then the percent scaling the int also makes them better, right? But I have this one for strength dex, same thing. And then I have this one for all attributes, chaos resistance. This one's really fucking good. And then I have this one. Now, this is probably the best one I have because it's the closest to perfect. It's 25% 20 instead of 35% 20 with tier 1 chaos res and tier 2 strength. And the reason strength scaling is important is because you have no strength. I have all this strength. 55 of this strength is coming from this ring right now. You need 114 strength to make your build work. So having these 36 strength, this is an extra passive point save, 36 strength. That's I don't have to take this. That's how good that is. But yeah, essentially the idea is that with more min-maxing and proper work, you'd be able to get your mana higher, get that clarity ES jewel maybe, and then you'd have easily 12, maybe 13k ES, and then yeah, I mean we can just do a little test thing for the build, I guess. Let me just run a map or something. You can run basically anything you want. Fuck it, run this burial chambers that's kind of thick. I'd run a Simu if I had one. You can do Uberts here. You can do every map mod on this. Fuck it. Alright, let me do I have sextants? Oh, you know what? I can move some sextants. Oh, this is fine. Let me just swap this out for something with mobs. I don't have a... How do I not have a better blue sextant? Fuck it, doesn't matter. Alright. And we'll do Beyond. Alright. Just kind of do a showcase run here. So... Basically, the second one keeps your flame dash up all the time. And you just want to click, flask, click, and go. Flame dash every now and then to reset your arcane surge. And things are pretty much just gonna fall over. I think the DPS on POE was 1.5 mil or something. It realistically... Or sorry, no. Once I made the changes to Dark Ideation, it went up to 2 mil. Yeah, I mean, you can see, against the boss, it takes a little bit of time for your DPS to, start going, but you still kill everything really fucking fast. The reason it takes some time to scale up is because of aspect of the spider, taking some time to, actually stack on the enemy. And then being close to your to the things that you're fighting is really helpful as well. There's a lot of nearby stuff, and then being blasphemy curses, obviously you want to be standing beside things. And yeah, I mean you can see everything just kind of falls over. This is just 40% delirium. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to do 100% delirium. I was doing 100% unrolled phoenixes and stuff. And that was okay. And hopefully we can see some beyond bosses start to spawn. yeah, if things get kind of shady, just proc your Vault Discipline, keep your flasks up. Pretty easy gameplay because the Soulrend will just hone in on the mobs as long as you shoot it in the general direction. And then we do get like an explode from the I actually don't know where does the explode come from. It's like a 10% chance to explode. I'm not actually sure. Not actually sure what causes the explode to happen. I can't remember. The gloves belt? No. I know, good video, right? Oh, I forgot to mention, we are taking Whispers of Doom for the +1 curse. If you got a plus curse amulet, that would save you 3 points. We're going this way to save a point. Going this way is less... like, the 5% node is, like, decent DPS, but it's not good enough to warrant, like, taking them over this. So if you could cut this, that'd be good. Oh, I gotta go over the Ascendancy, too. Man, I'm just forgetting everything today. Okay, we'll go over the Ascendancy in a sec. Let's do this map showcase. See if I can remember what causes me to cause enemies to explode. I want to say it has to do with like the Despair Curse, but I'm not sure. And yeah, I mean you can see like when it does explode, it's like the enemies just kind of like the whole mob just blows up, right? You could scale it with Unspeakable Gifts if you want to go for like a pop build. Unspeakable Gifts is like a notable mod on Cluster Jewels. And yeah, I mean, you can see this is a pretty juiced map, right? Like, we're on 140 quant. Obviously, it's like it could be juicier, but the upside of playing Essence Drain Contagion over like playing a build like this is that you'll notice that when I kill the mobs and the Beyond monsters spawn, I have to cast again to hit some of the Beyond monsters that don't get hit by the initial Soulrend. And the like sometimes it'll still be passing through them when they spawn, but most time it won't. If you play ED Contagion, then what happens is that they'll spread they'll prolift the dot to the new enemies that spawn, and so you'll just have a much better clear. Stimnite Flask is actually like really good for the build. Like it's another way of getting Despair if you don't want Despair on Curse. Despair on hit. Or like aren't using Blasphemy or whatever. It basically also gives you like a bunch of dot, so Stimnite, the Stimnite Flask unique, the Witchfire Brew is really good as well. You can use that. Oh, I gotta talk about Pantheon too. Let's see here. We're using Soul of Solaris, and you can see like I don't really have to pay much attention to the map here. I just hit Vault Discipline if I see my health dropping, and then I'm fine, right? But yeah, Soul of Solaris gives you like some Fizz reduction, as well as some Ellie reduction. The node extra from crits is really fucking good. And then the chance to avoid ailments from crits is like good. It's good for like simulacrum ailments, right? Like brittle and shit. That stuff is pretty strong. And then we get immune to poison from here, as well as just like reduced damage from Caustic Ground. Caustic Ground is a bit of a problem. We are capped Chaos Res with this build, 75%. It's not too hard to do that. That's one of the other reasons we're not like super easily res capped, is because we'd have a bunch in Chaos Res. But you can res cap that way. I wonder if it's just part of Soulrend. The Soulrend causes the explosion. Sorry, I'm tangenting a whole bunch right now. But yeah, and you know, we could probably tank like a volatile if we wanted to. Not at no life. And yeah, you can see here that you know, the main downside here, the one thing you don't really get protection from when you're playing a build like this, right, is A, the simulacrum ailments, or in general the delirium ailments, but B, the slows and things, right? Like anything that's not a chill, that's a slow, that shit's really hard to like take actions like while you're doing it, and you'll probably die if you get stuck by something like that. Um, because you're not playing a regen build, you need to like actively not be getting hit in order to not die. So you can see there, when we get hit by that slow, there's like nothing we can do. Like we can, all our flasks, having the huge adrenaline up, we still get slowed to like where we basically aren't even moving. That's something like Calm's Roots is really good for solving. But there's times when Omniphobia will hit you if you let him hit you. Um, and you'll basically be unable to move because the Omniphobia is just he'll put like 12 stacks of his slow on you and it'll freeze you in your place. And there's not really anything you can do about it that I've found. I'm really hoping they add ways to deal with that stuff in the future. If you wanted to go for like crystal skin and stack like ailment prevention on your gear, that'd help a bit with some of the simulacrum ailments, but I don't think it'll help you with like the ground effects and all that gnarly stuff. Because I think the major slows are ground effects, so it's just trying to stay like outside of them. But obviously, it's really hard to see what's going on when like you're farming something like this. But you can see how fast like that has just falls over, right? Like, and imagine if I like had actual like properly crafted jewels, like if they were like the really good ones, and I had more mana. Mana scaling, we have like, I want to say 6 dark ideations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 6 dark ideations on the build. So getting mana is like pretty big damage. Every time you get 100 mana, you get 12% more damage just for 100 mana. So if you like actually went int stacking or mana stacking, you could probably scale this stuff a little bit higher if you got like really good suffixes on your stuff. Like if you had like T1 int on the ring, 2 rings, you'd be dealing some pretty swole damage. Because it kind of reaches a point where you get so much chaos dot multi from like stuff that getting flat like spell damage, I don't want to say flat damage, getting like just spell damage and chaos damage is like almost a better way to scale your damage. Because it falls off. But yeah, it's a really clean like gameplay. You don't really have to like focus much. You can like watch something in the background. You just kind of chill. It's really good for party play because you have like the auras and the sorry, not the auras. You have the curses. You could put in like a different aura if you wanted to be like a support. If you wanted to switch from like res on your gear to triple purity, you could get enough reservation using like an Alpha's Howl or something maybe to like actually like reasonably run triple purities on your build. Like if we look at my like actual reservation per aura right now, fuck, Zeltree is like 27%. That's like the most, right? If I look at like a curse, my curse is reserved 17%. And if I was running actual curse jewels, they'd reserve even less. It'd be like 10% per curse with like proper like investment. But yeah, you can see like how easy like regular content, and you can do like basically any map mod. I don't know what the map mods on that were. Let's take a look actually real quick. That was like that was an enfeeble map. Extra life on the boss, like extra proj. It wasn't like it wasn't a super rippy map in any way. But yeah, I mean it was an enfeeble map, so like things will die faster if you like don't have enfeeble on you, obviously. Alright, so the ascendancy here we forgot to look at. Oh, duh, that's where the explosions come from. So we were taking this, the Vile Bastion, before, because they cannot be stunned while you have Energy Shield. If you don't run Skyforce, this is another option that lets you run an Amulet without running Presence of Kyula. Void Beacon is huge damage, obviously, and then Withering Presence, huge damage, 60 Chaos Res, another reason you don't need Presence of Kyula. Profane Bloom gives you curses on hexproof enemies, and then the 25% chance to explode enemies that are cursed, so the nearby ones, basically. And then Malediction gives you the other plus on curse, some curse effect. When you kill an enemy, you get some damage, but you get the damage to non-chaos damage, so you don't get anything from that. But the Malediction itself is that enemies that have it will deal 10% reduced damage, and they'll take 10% increased damage. So this means that basically enemies we curse are going to be dealing less damage to everyone in the party, and then they're going to take more damage from everyone in the party. So that's really, really good for party play as well. I think that about does it. I want to say that I'm missing something, because I'm always missing something. But yeah, sorry, my voice is a little raspy. I'm kind of losing it, but I wanted to put this up a reasonable amount of time before the next league. As far as like league starting, you basically just want to use like a +1 dot, god damn, +1 chaos gems wand, or chaos dot multi wand while leveling. You can buy them from the vendors occasionally when they pop up. What I did was I grabbed like cold or fire ones, and then I swapped people early in the league for the one that I needed, the chaos ones, and those basically carry you to endgame. And obviously you start leveling with Essence Drain Contagion, then you switch once it's actually good to switch. I did play Bane for a while until Bane wasn't what I wanted to do, and then I switched out of it. But it was a good like start, right? I'm trying to think if there's anything. I did get 40-40 challenges this league, so like, you know, like none of the challenges were really an issue. In fact, some of the like skill intensive ones were really easy. I've been doing carries for them because things like dodging the terrace balls is a lot easier to do when your attack hones in on the target, right? But yeah, you can do Uber at Siri, you can do Cortex, you can do Uber Elder. You can do all that stuff. You can do blighted maps. You can do delirium influenced conquerors. You can do simulacrum. You can do literally everything with this build. It's not hardcore viable. I don't think that Wicked Word as a concept is hardcore viable. Before it was nerfed, like in Synthesis when I played this build, I would say it was like hardcore viable. I got to 99.5 level outside of Breachstones in like 3 weeks playing the same thing. And that was like 3 weeks ago before we had all this bullshit cluster jewel stuff, right? So I think I was actually running a triple purity setup instead of a curse setup at the time. Maybe a little bit of both. I was hard stacking reservation. I had like reduced mana reservation jewels because they were cheaper at the time. That's another option, like, right, if you have all your shit. But yeah, I think that's about it. I think that'll do it. You got call on your flame dash, so you can just make sure you secure the boss kills when you're doing like carries and stuff. It's really handy. I would recommend this build. But I'd recommend that you play like Essence Drain Contagion or something, or you play it with Bane. Those would be my my suggestions there. Anyways, yep.